Alrighty, so I'm here today to talk a little bit about something that is, commonly understood in the FGC, or the fighting game community. But a lot of people that I talk to, um, a lot of my friends that aren't in the FGC, a lot of people new to the FGC, some of the girlfriends that I've had, etc. A lot of people don't know what a lot of the FGC terms and things are. And I thought that I would make a couple videos here and there kind of explaining it on a basic level, just for them so they understand a little bit better. And today, one of the things that I get asked about a lot when I make posts, or I'm talking in some of my other videos or streams or etc. Whenever I'm talking to people, I'll talk about frame data. And people have no idea what frame data is. I'll play a lot online and get someone who's salty and message me, and I'll be like, do you know why you lost? It was because you don't understand frame data. And you're either going to get the classic, like, your mom's a hoe back, or they're going to be like, what's frame data? Like, I fight so many people that are, they're playing ranked, but they don't really understand Mortal Kombat or fighting games. For the example of frame data, I will be using Mortal Kombat 11, because that is currently the fighting game that I am playing the most, as well as that I'm trying to play competitively at a sort of lower scale. I'm not like regionals or anything, but so we're going to be using Mortal Kombat as an example here. So frame data is essentially just math. It's just numbers. It is the number of frames of animation that an attack or move has to go through. And it's separated into multiple categories of different types of frames that we're going to get into. There are 60 frames in a second, in 1 second. That's the important thing to know. There are 60 frames. So, hypothetically, if an attack took 30 frames, that attack comes out fully in half a second. So with that being kept in mind, Mortal Kombat 11 is a very frame-intensive game. It makes it easy to understand and learn frames, because all the frames are kind of in the game for you to see. Like, as I'm looking through my moves list here, you can see on the bottom right there is a giant fucking word that says frame data, and it explains to you different types of frame data. A lot of fighting games, like I played a lot of Dragon Ball FighterZ when it came out, and initially when that game came out, it did not have frame data that you could access easily. And you kind of have to dig for it and have people kind of do the hard work of figuring out how many frames is an attack and blah, blah, blah. Mortal Kombat 11, as well as previous Mortal Kombat games, like X, come with frame data in the game. Although the frame data in this menu can be a bit wonky at times and not always 100% correct, but that's not important for this explanation. So essentially, as you can see, again, with the giant thing that says frame data, you see a bunch of numbers. And they are listed startup, active, recovery, cancel advantage, hit advantage, block advantage, and F block advantage, which is flawless block. Now, for the start of this explanation, we're going to ignore the right-hand side that are in blue, the hit advantage, block advantage, and flawless block advantage. And we'll get into that afterwards. We're going to start with basics on frames. So the startup, 7, on Liu Kang's standard square punch here, which is actually the number 1. We call that 1. To explain that really quickly, the attacks in NetherRealm games and in other fighting games as well, although they use a different system commonly, are broken down into 1, 2, 3, and 4. And 1, 2, 3, and 4 is square, triangle, X, and circle on PlayStation. I forget the layout of Xbox controllers at the current moment, but I mean, you can apply that over. It's essentially just taking from the left-hand side of your 4 buttons and then moving right. So like square is on the left, and then I'm moving technically right, even though it's also at the top, to triangle, and then I go down to the left again on X, and then over to the right again for circle. Now, the reason why we break down controls this way instead of just saying square, triangle, X, circle is for the exact reason of, me not being able to remember the Xbox buttons. If you're an Xbox player and or a PC player and use keyboard for whatever reason, or you play on stick, a fighting stick, which is something I can explain if people don't get that later. If you are a player who does not play on PlayStation and then you watch a video and somebody mentions that a combo is done by using, square, triangle, X, circle, you're like, well, what the fuck are those to my buttons? It makes it harder to understand. So instead, the FGC just breaks them down as 1, 2, 3, and 4. And these are always the same. Left punch, left kick, right kick in the case of Mortal Kombat. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that way, if I say a combo is a 1, 1, 3 combo, on Xbox, you know what that button input is. It's going to be the same for you in your head as it is for me on PlayStation. So we do that as a way of sort of breaking the barrier between different controls. So with that being said and out of the way, back to frame data. So Liu Kang's power punch move here that I'm currently highlighting, his standing 1, just a basic punch. The startup is 7 frames. The active frames are 3, and the recovery frames are 16. So let's break that down. Again, there are 60 frames in a second. Startup is how long it takes for the move to go from when you press the button to when it is active. When the move is active, what that means is it can actually hit the opponent. You can be hit after pressing a button before your move can actually become active and hit the opponent. You have to go through your startup frames before a move can hit. The active frames should be kind of self-explanatory after that. It is how long the move remains with a hitbox up. A hitbox being the invisible box that is put over the character's fist to show, or not to show, but to allow the move to register as a hit as far as programming the video game goes. This is for more games than just fighting games, obviously. So that hitbox will remain active and out. It can hit an opponent for 3 frames, again, out of 60 frames in a single second. So it's very little time as far as real time goes. And then the recovery frames is how long you have of your character basically retracting that punch or kick or whatever. In this case, it's a punch. After the active frames end, before they can do something else. It's known as recovery. So, like if you were to stick out this punch, it stays, takes 7 frames to come out, then it stays active for 3, and then it takes you 16 before you can move again. This is the basics of frame data. It's just numbers. So that's, again, the bare minimum basics. But we also have different things. Hits register differently on hit or on block. So if an opponent were to block a move, it's different than if the opponent were to get hit by the move as far as frame data goes. That's what we have the secondary set of frame data information on the right-hand side for: the hit advantage, block advantage, and flawless block advantage. I guess real quick I'll explain that in the middle, the cancel advantage is how many frames you have to cancel that move into a special move. So in fighting games we have special moves. They're usually inputs like, say, back forward 1, Here is a fireball, this. So I have 10 frames where I can input a fireball from this punch, this standing 1 that we've been looking at the frame data for. I have 10 frames where I can attempt to input the fireball for it to actually come out. That's known as cancel advantage. But that is not specific to Mortal Kombat, but the way that I'm explaining it is more specific to Mortal Kombat, and that doesn't really matter as much for our explanation here. So the hit advantage, block advantage, and flawless block advantage. As for flawless blocking, again, that is something specific to Mortal Kombat, and I'm not going to explain that in this video, so we're going to ignore that one as it doesn't really matter so much for my explanation. Hit advantage and block advantage is very important, though. So you may see hit advantage is 4, and block advantage is, interestingly, -2. It's a negative number. And we haven't really talked about frame data being negative yet. So what that means is if I hit the opponent with my stand 1, the move we've been talking about, this is the move. If I'm smacking him with this, see, notice how it takes Scorpion a moment before he kind of returns to his neutral standing pose like he is right now. It takes him a second. Now, what that is referred to is your hit advantage, which is being shown here as 4 frames. What that is if you actually manage to connect an attack with the opponent, it is the number of frames their character will take before they can perform an action. It's kind of like your recovery frames, except for it's when they get hit. So in this case, if Scorpion is smacked by my stand 1, I am at a hit advantage of 4, which means he is at a hit disadvantage of 4. So that means that it's going to take him 4 frames before he can put out a punch. And therefore, technically, you know, it's more my turn than it is his, which we'll explain in a little bit. And the dog just knocked over a bunch of shit because it spooked him for some reason. There was a jar, and the jar spooked him because he's a dummy. Ignoring that, moving on to block advantage. If the opponent manages to block an attack, it's a different story. Obviously, they're not going to be stuck in place. So if we set the AI here to block... Oh, wait, I'm on the wrong one. Hang on, we want this. So, if we set him to block, see, obviously he blocked the attack, he recovers a lot quicker. And actually he recovers before we do, because the block advantage of our punch is -2. So negative numbers are the same as positive numbers, except for they mean the opposite, obviously, just like in regular math. So instead of us being at, 2 frames of advantage, we're at 2 frames of disadvantage. What this means is that because he blocked our attack, he recovers from blocking our attack faster than we recover from doing the attack. Much like before, if we hit him with the attack, we recover first, and that's why we're at 4 frames of hit advantage. Block advantage, if he blocks the attack here, means that it's now technically Scorpion's turn. Again, I'll explain more on turns, and we'll get deeper into this in a moment. So that's kind of the basics. The basics is it's all just numbers and math. 60 frames in a second, and you have different types of frames between your startup, active, and recovery. And then as far as hitting the opponent goes, there's hit, and then there's block. Hit advantage, block advantage. So now we're going to kind of break those down further and explain some of the differences in frame data a little bit more in depth. Alrighty, so continuing with our example here, we're going to talk about turns and moves that are safe on block, punishable on block, and plus on block. I'll start by explaining what a turn is be when it is your turn to press buttons. When you can be on the offensive and the opponent has to block. That's what we refer to as a turn. Mom said it's my turn on the Xbox. So, for this example, I've taken control of Scorpion. Here, I'm now on the right-hand side. And I've recorded Liu Kang to do his forward 3-3-3 string. Now, forward 3-3-3 for Liu Kang is -12. Which you can see without me even going into the menu here. Because there are these little boxes. If you look at the bottom left and right-hand sides of the screen, right above the yellow meter, there's little boxes that say startup, active, recovery, etc. like we saw on the frame data screen in the moves list. This is frame data in-game. So if I were to play out Liu Kang and block his move, you can see on Liu Kang's side on the bottom left, it says block advantage -12. So that means in that case, because I blocked Liu Kang's barrage of kicks, he is at -12. Now, this is what we refer to as a punishable move, because it's -12. So any move that Scorpion has, we're now going to be looking in the menu at Scorpion's moves. Any move that Scorpion has that is 12 frames or faster can what we call punish Liu Kang's move. A punish is when you can be hit for attempting a move and the opponent blocks it. It's very simple stuff, very straightforward, easy to understand. So we talked about startup frames earlier, and how startup frames are how many frames it takes before a move gets to its active stage where it can hit the opponent. So this is what you need to be looking at if you want to punish someone. We'll start with, again, his standing one, his jab, just like we looked at for Liu Kang, just to keep this basic. So his standing jab is 7 frames startup, as you can see down there on the frame data screen, just like Liu Kang's was when we talked about it earlier. So this means it takes 7 frames of animation before it can get to its active frames, which is 2 in this case, and hit Liu Kang. Since Liu Kang is minus 12, and 7 is obviously faster than 12, again, it has to be 12 or faster. So the only thing that wouldn't work in this example is 13. So if we have a number 12 or faster, so like this 7-frame move here, we can punish Liu Kang. That means that this move will punish. So if we take a look here, and I block Liu Kang's string, we can see that I can hit him before he can block. And you can tell it's a punish, like the game will actually tell you. If you look on the right-hand side of the screen where you see my inputs popping up, you'll see a little bubble pop up that says punish. Ooh, I actually messed it up there. Let's try one more time. Right there. See that little bubble that said punish? It looks like a little skull almost. So the game will actually tell you in Mortal Kombat 11's case, you won't always be able to see that bubble. But you'll know because the opponent will block you. So this is a very basic example. But just for this example, this 7-frame move punishes Liu Kang's minus 12 frame move. That is what makes Liu Kang's string here, the string of kicks, what we call punishable on block. And that's how frame data works when trying to figure out like how you, air quotes, beat a move. A lot of new people don't understand this, and they'll just kind of mash buttons and throw things out without knowing that they're throwing out something that is actually dangerous to throw out, like in Liu Kang's case, which we're going to switch back to Liu Kang for a second. Like in Liu Kang's case here, you know, you don't just want to throw this out because you can be punished for it, and a smart player will take advantage of that. So now let's talk about safe on block and plus on block. Now, safe on block is the complete opposite of punishable. You cannot be punished for throwing it out. So let's take a look at some strings here. So we'll use 1, 2, 3 as an example. Twin Lotus, this string right here. Twin Lotus is this. So this, if it's blocked, is only minus 6. Now that means that Scorpion needs a move that is 6 frames or faster in order to punish me. Now in Mortal Kombat, the fastest move that you can get is 6 frames, so technically this string would be punishable if Scorpion had one, but he doesn't. And even then, the only moves that are ever 6 frames in MK11 are down ones, so these kind of little pokes that every character has. Every character can do a crouching, like punch, and some characters have ones that are 6 frames. Even then, you would have to be frame perfect with your timing and input the move right as you blocked my move in order to punish me. But in Scorpion's case, to keep it simple, he can't punish this. There's nothing he can do about this string. However, that does not mean that he gets away with this scot-free. Because he is minus 6, Liu Kang can't throw another move before Scorpion. Again, using basic math. So, we're going to talk about how you should look at frame data a little bit more in depth with this example. So, if I'm minus 6 after doing this string, let's say I'm Liu Kang, and I want to do this string right here, and then I want to poke with a stand 1, like this, because I want to do it again. Let's say I want to do this twice, right? So I have to do this, and then I'm going to try to go for another stand 1. Right? Okay. So my string here is going to leave me minus 6. And the startup for my stand 1 at the beginning of the string is, again, like we talked about earlier, 7 frames. Now, because I'm minus 6, what you do is you take the minus frames and you add them to the startup of whatever move you want to do next, because you have to wait for those minus frames to go through before you can begin a new move. So by basic math and basic logic, we would add the minus frames to the startup frames. So if we were to take the 6 minus frames from Scorpion blocking Twin Lotus and add them to Power Punch, his standing 1, which is 7, we get 13. So it actually takes 13 frames for this next stand 1 to come out and for me to attempt doing the string again. Now what that means, again, going back to our example of punishable, which is why I did it first, if Scorpion picks any move out of his arsenal, now we're looking at Scorpion's move list. If he picks any move out of his arsenal where it says startup, and it is 13 equal to 13 or less or faster, like again, we can use the example we used earlier. His stand jab here would be fast enough. He can interrupt me attempting to do the second string. So I'll record it real fast and actually show you a live example of this. So right here, we have Liu Kang set to do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like we talked about. And I'm going to jab him in between his string and punish him. So, as you can see there, it said counter. Now this this means that you stopped a move before it could actually reach its active frames. So you hit an opponent out of the startup of their move. If you see the little, again, this is Mortal Kombat, Mortal Kombat 11 exclusively for this, but if you see the little bubble pop up with the skull that says punish, that means that you hit a move essentially during its recovery frames when it was punishable because it was so minus. And if you see a little bubble that shows a dragon, like we just saw in this example here, that means this is counter in that little bubble, or next to it, I should say. That means that you hit a move during its startup. And the reason why that works, again, is because Liu Kang's startup on the second stand 1 is actually 13 frames now. And because this move right here that we're doing is only 7, we beat it. So what you do is when you have something that is minus, you add those minus frames to the startup of your next attack if you want to do another attack, and that is how many frames it is going to take in order for you to do the next attack. So even though Liu Kang is safe by doing this string, if he tries to do anything afterwards, I can hit him. So he has to basically lose his turn, like we talked about earlier, and block. So while some moves may be what we call safe on block, and they might only have like basically safe on block is going to be anything minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in most cases 6. Even in some cases 7 if you're playing online. Lag can kind of screw people over if they're trying to use a 7-frame punish. So basically, anything that is 1 to 5, and in most cases 6, is going to be in Mortal Kombat, again, not in all fighting games, in Mortal Kombat 11, is going to be what we call safe. And that means that you can't be punished for doing it. But don't think that the word safe, as we just showed, means that you can just get away with it. You do still lose your turn. Now, there's lots of meta games and things to this, but we're not explaining those in this video. We're just explaining frame data basics. So now let's talk about plus on block. And it's kind of the opposite of what we just talked about here, with the whole adding your minus frames to your plus frames. So plus on block are these really powerful strings. Usually they'll have a weakness, but they're these really powerful strings. And we will switch back to Liu Kang for this example. So I'm back on Liu Kang, and just making sure we have Scorpion still set to block. Okay. So Liu Kang has a string, and he is not the only character. Like I said, usually these will come with weaknesses, but they will have strings like forward 4, 3, up 3, right here. Chinese Warrior is what it's called. Now, if we look at the frame data of this move, on the right-hand side, we can see that it says block advantage 4. Now this is interesting because normally when it says block advantage, see, these are all minuses. Now this is the first move we've seen that says it's 4. It's a plus number, not a minus. It's not negative. This is an example of a move that is plus on block, which are very strong. And if you've been following along so far and you think you understand where this is going, you might understand that this means exactly what you think it means. It means that it's still my turn, even after the opponent blocks it, because he has to stumble back there, see? So, I can go for another attack, and it's still arguably my turn. Unlike with our examples of punishable and safe on block, which makes plus frames really, really strong, because you can continue to pressure the opponent. You can continue to stay on them and keep taking turn after turn. It's not overpowered. There are ways to beat it, but we're not explaining that in this video. But essentially, we're going to talk about how plus on block works now. So, just like with our previous example, we're going to do the same thing. This move is plus 4 when the opponent blocks it. And what that means is that we recover 4 frames, following along with everything we've talked about, faster than the opponent, faster than Scorpion. So, using our logic from the safe on block example, where we took our minus and we added it to our plus frames to get the startup of our next stand 1, which is 13. Let's take the startup of forward 4, which is 9 frames. See? Forward 4. That's the beginning of this string we're talking about. This move right here. This is 9 frames. So, we're going to take forward 4, and we're going to minus the amount of frames that this is plus, the opposite of before. You still with me? So, since this is plus 4 on block, we minus 4 frames from the startup of our next move, which in this case is forward 4 or Lotus Strikes. Which now, instead of this move being 9 frame startup, it is now a 5 frame startup move, because we're minusing 4 frames from it. So if Scorpion blocks this right here, he has to have a move that is 5 frames or faster in order to stop me from doing this again. Like so. Like this. Oop, I kind of screwed it up there. Let's get another good example. Right there. He has to have a move that is 5 frames or faster. And as I explained to you guys, in Mortal Kombat 11, there are no moves that are 5 frames. The fastest move is 6 frames. So, Scorpion basically has to respect this. Respect is a term used to explain, like, you basically, you know that you're screwed, so you sit there and you block. You pay respect knowing that you can't do anything about it is essentially what respect means. Being disrespectful tends to mean you're going to challenge something, which is a topic for an entirely different video. But Scorpion basically has to respect this, because or else he's going to get hit, right? So, like, I'll show another recorded example here coming up, and we'll show what happens with respect and disrespecting this string. Alrighty. So for the last step of this video, we're going to be explaining that plus frames example we were just talking about. I have Liu Kang here. I'm Scorpion again. And I have Liu Kang set, as usual, to do his string that ends in plus frames, that ends in the plus 4. And he's going to go for another one afterwards. Similar to our example earlier with the 1, 2, 3. So in this case, I'm going to try to do exactly what we did in that earlier example and try to hit him with my stand 1 out of the gap in between strings. So I'm going to try to hit him right after this kick before he can do another one. And we're going to see what happens in this case. Oh no! Well, that's sad. I totally got hit out of it. You see, this is what happens with plus frames. So the opponent is at plus, so because my move is 7 frames, and that, like we talked about just a moment ago, his move is actually 5, he beats me, and so he counter hits me, like we counter hit him earlier, out of my move, and we get smacked really hard for it. So that's kind of what plus frames are. They allow you to take a turn back. Plus and minus work the same way, just on opposite spectrums. If you have minus frames, you add them to the startup of your next move, and if you have plus frames, you minus the plus frames from the startup of your next move if you're looking to move again. And punishable is when you are so minus that the opponent can fit their startup frames in or before your minus frames. So in the case of our first example, minus 12 would be beat by a startup of 7, because 7 is a lesser number than 12. So because you have a plus 7 move, a regular 7 right here on startup, and it fits inside of minus 12, you get the hit. You get to get a clean hit. So I hope that kind of gives a basic understanding of how frame data operates and the primary 3 types of frame data and how they break down into different pieces. I just have a lot of people, when I'm talking about fighting games, not understand frames. And it is very, very important to know this stuff if you want to play these games at any sort of competitive level. As, if you're just going out throwing out buttons, and you don't know what your frames are, you're going to get smacked a lot by someone who does. Like for Liu Kang here, if you didn't know this was plus, Liu Kang can just keep doing this, and you're going to keep getting smacked. Like, why am I getting smacked? I don't understand. When is it my turn to hit a button? Gosh darn it. And, yeah, that's kind of the frustration a lot of new players will feel when they don't understand frame data, and it causes a lot of people that I've seen to call fighting games bullshit who don't understand how fighting games work. And it's not very hard math, and it's not very hard to understand. It's just something you kind of have to come, to grasp with and learn over time. The more you play whatever game it is that you're playing, the more you're going to understand it. Some games, like I said at the very beginning, it's going to be harder to find frame data for your game than it is for MK11, for Mortal Kombat 11 here. But frame data is very important to fighting games. So I hope that this helps somebody. There's a lot that I know was left unexplained as far as mechanics go, or terms that I used, etc., even though I did stop the video in some places to talk about those. There is just a lot of fighting game terminology and mechanics that are hard to explain all in one video and would derail the video more than it already has been. So if anybody has questions, you can ask them to me, and I will either answer them directly or make a video about it. And I will be making more videos in the future, I believe, particularly about Mortal Kombat 11, and explain a few more of the things about fighting games and about Mortal Kombat 11 specifically that I did not explain here. I just wanted to start with frame data, even though it's kind of a bigger one. I might cover some more simple stuff in the next video that is more simple terminology for fighting games as a whole. But frame data is something that keeps getting brought up to me, like I mentioned, by so many people that I talk to. And I just wanted to make sure everybody had a kind of basic grasp and understanding of what I'm talking about, so that if I mention it in a conversation or in a video or in a post, you can be like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I understand. At least, on a basic level, I can get where you're coming from. So, yeah, with that being said, everyone have a good day. Go out and play some fighting games, man. Fighting games are fun. Fighting games are good for your brain as well. So, I'll see you in the next one.